Which World Series MVPs became legends, and which ones need to remind their friends they got the trophy? Today, we turn the award into an immortality test. Across 8 stops, we'll hit the forgotten winners, the stacked team ring chasers, the blowout benefactors, the true carry jobs, and the 2 gold standards. We're calling out last hit bias, the eternal asterisk jokes, and those one-week heaters that fooled everyone. If you've ever argued that the MVP sometimes goes to the loudest moment, not the best series, you'll want to see where each name lands and why the final tier lives forever. D tier, the forgotten legends. If you have to Google your World Series MVP to remember his face, you're in this tier. The ring is real, the parade happened, and yet the highlight reel in your head draws a blank. These are the winners who did the job in the moment, then slipped into the background as the years rolled by. The teams lifted the trophy, but the individual story never stuck. How can an MVP be the best over a week and still feel invisible later? That's the memory gap in October. Without a signature clip that runs every fall, the brain files the series under nice win and moves on. The performance can be clean and timely, but if the series doesn't produce a replay that lives on national loops, the legend fades. It's not fair. It's how sports memory works. Start with David Eckstein in 2006. An undersized shortstop and contact machine, he turned defense and grit into a brand. He laced 2 doubles in Game 4, then stacked go-ahead RBIs in Game 5 to seal it. At 5'6", he basically posted advanced scrappiness per 9 and cashed it in when it mattered. The stat line isn't loud, but every swing felt targeted. The thing is, those hits don't rerun much, so the story becomes the scrappy guy won MVP, not the specific knocks that won innings. Cole Hamels in 2008 felt like the face of October as a whole. He pulled off the rare NLCS and World Series MVP combo, and his stuff was sharp. But the World Series itself was short, and the rain delay split a game into pieces. Fans remember the tarp, the suspended finish, and the quick wrap more than his starts. It plays like a season epilogue, not a saga, and that pulls attention away from what he did on the mound. Jermaine Dye in 2005 hit .438 and delivered the title-clinching RBI. That should be a memory lock. The conflict is that the 2005 World Series rarely gets a rewatch. Fewer iconic swings replayed on national packages leaves those moments without oxygen. The hits happened, the run scored, the trophy raised, and then the tape got dusty. A great week with weak replay value becomes trivia. There's a pattern behind this tier. Recall bias favors the clip you see every October, not the quiet line that decided a Game 4. Narrative scarcity makes otherwise strong MVPs hard to summon on command. Our running gag about voters chasing the last big hit even fails here because the internet doesn't serve these highlights enough to build that myth. Try the ghost test right now. Name 3 plays from the 2006, 2008, or 2005 World Series without looking. Most can't, and that's the point. If D tier are ghosts, the next group are co-stars in a superhero movie where everyone had powers. C tier, your team was too good. When the lineup card looks like an all-star game, how do you pick one hero? That's the C tier problem. These MVPs were great, but they lived on rosters where 4 other guys felt like co-leads. The stat lines pop, the rings shine, and yet the story keeps spreading across the dugout. Credit gets shared so much that one name can't carry the banner. This is where great team strength flattens the spotlight. You watch those games and keep asking who actually swung the series. The answer is often several of them. The MVP ends up being the last loudest bat or the one with the cleanest OPS, not a clear carry job. That doesn't mean they didn't earn it. It just means the case could have gone 3 directions without starting a riot. Jorge Soler in 2021 is the clean example. 3 homers and a couple go-ahead missiles, plus the drama of arriving mid-season, gave him the headline. The twist is the Braves had arms dealing all month, so every game felt like a group project where he wrote the closing paragraph. If another Brave went off in one more game, the ballot swings. Corey Seager in 2020 put up a monster line. He hit .400 with power, but the Dodgers' offense was a hydra. Every head was dangerous. Mookie Betts kept dropping pivotal base running and defensive plays in Game 6 that pulled narrative weight. It's safe to say if voters flipped the coin to Betts, few would complain. And that's the point of this tier. George Springer in 2017 stacked big numbers and bigger side-eye. 5 homers, walks, extra base hits across the board. Then there's the part everyone brings up. The asterisk is larger than his home run spray chart. The production is real on paper, but the legacy comes with footnotes that people won't delete, and that drags the shine. Manny in 2004, Zobrist in 2016, and Lowell in 2007 all delivered. The thing is, they each stood in a lineup filled with stars, so the case felt interchangeable. You could swap the name and still tell the same story. Jeremy Pena in 2022 won as a rookie, which gives it a nice twist, while Altuve and Alvarez kept doing damage around him. Again, a strong week on a team that rarely needed saving. Here's the insight. On super teams, the MVP turns into a contest between best OPS and the last highlight late in the series. Narrative dilution reduces immortality odds because the memory gets divided among too many candidates. That leads to the could-have-been 5 guys rule. If you can swap the name and the story still works, it's C. Now, what if the stage was lopsided, not the roster? That's a different kind of credit problem, and it takes some shine off even the biggest swings. B tier, better with a battle. Dominance in a sweep can feel smaller than grit in 7. These MVPs did the job, had big swings, and stacked key innings, but the series itself didn't squeeze enough drama to etch every moment in stone. Without that late fear, the mind files the memory as clean and quick instead of epic. That's the tension here. High leverage spots build legend. When a matchup ends fast, there are fewer must-have at-bats and fewer pitches that feel like a cliff. Great numbers still matter, but they don't lodge the same way when the threat level never spikes. You remember the win, not the sweat. Derek Jeter in 2000 is the cleanest example. He posted a steady line in the Subway Series and set the tone from the jump. The roster around him ran about 10 deep with all-star level production, so the joke writes itself. He could have sneezed and won MVP with that depth. He did the captain thing, took the hardware, and moved on. It feels earned, but not life or death. Pablo Sandoval in 2012 dropped a 3-homer Game 1 and turned Comerica into a launch pad. By Game 3, the sweep energy had settled in, and the tension meter slid down. The homers were loud, the story was quick, and the memory became the Panda game more than a full series grind. Dominant, sure. Dramatic, not really. Edgar Renteria in 2010 delivered the decisive swing off Cliff Lee and carried a calm approach all week. The Giant staff smothered Texas so thoroughly that each game felt shortened by design. When your rotation turns the lights off by the 6th, the hitter's legend shares space with the mound. His moment lands, but the fear never lingered. Salvador Perez in 2015 caught every inning, handled a running game, and chipped in at the plate. The Royals played contact baseball, kept the ball in play, and won on waves of pressure. That style spreads credit. Perez's durability mattered a ton, but the spotlight kept bouncing from at-bat to at-bat, which blurs the MVP frame. Steve Pearce, in 2018, smashed 2 huge homers and flipped win probability like a switch, but the Red Sox controlled the series almost end-to-end. It reads like a cameo that stole the scene, not a saga built over a week. The highlights hit hard. The stakes felt manageable. Here's the insight that ties it together. Clutch perception rises with leverage index and series length. Sweeps cap the number of knife-edge moments, so even elite lines feel smaller in the collective memory. Call it the leverage tax. Great stats, discounted recall because fear never peaked. Let's move to the carry jobs. The guys who fail to remove him, do they still win? Test. A tier. They lose without him. Take the MVP out, the parade gets canceled. That's the bar here. These are the anchors who didn't just add wins. They flipped games, slowed rallies, or broke them open so often that removing them breaks the bracket math. Hideki Matsui in 2009 turned the Bronx into his personal batting cage. He hit .615 for the series and, in Game 6 alone, stacked 3 extra base hits and 6 RBI. He went full Godzilla mode without needing a skyscraper. Every at-bat felt like a run in progress, and by the time he was done, the trophy presentation was a formality. David Ortiz in 2013 basically walked to first all week. A .688 average and an on-base parade that never stopped. Pitchers kept trying new plans. None worked. At some point, clutch started to feel like the wrong word because the right word is Ortiz. He controlled tempo, forced longer innings, and made every Boston rally feel loaded before the pitch. Curt Schilling and Randy Johnson in 2001 were a two-man storm. Co-MVP level dominance with the big unit coming out of the pen on short rest in Game 7 and Schilling stacking gutsy starts that set the tone. The Yankees kept finding answers until those two made them run out of them. That's not bravado. That's workload and execution. Steven Strasburg in 2019 threw 2 starts, went 2-0 with 14 strikeouts, and used that changeup like a cheat code. He reset the series tempo. Houston's lineup thrives on timing. Strasburg kept deleting it, inning after inning, which let the Nationals ride a very narrow path to 4 wins. Corey Seager in 2023 delivered the seismic homers, late-inning equalizers that flipped the dugout mood and turned close games into blowouts a half-inning later. He collects World Series MVP moments like Pokemon cards, and everyone seems holographic. It wasn't volume, it was the timing and the distance. Troy Glaus in 2002 kept splitting gaps when leverage was highest. Those game-breaking doubles came late when one swing changes how the bullpen is used. He didn't just add runs, he rearranged innings for the other side. That's how an MVP adds value you feel in 3 outs, not 9. Josh Beckett in 2003 shut the door in Game 6 with a complete game shutout on short rest. A young staff leaned on a 23-year-old who treated Yankee Stadium like a bullpen session. Short rest, heavy pitch count, 0 panic. That's a carry job. Freddie Freeman in 2024 turned a bad ankle into a gag and then into production. 1 leg, walk-off grand slam in Game 1, the first in World Series history. Then a homer in the next 3 games. He looked like he borrowed his grandpa's ankle and still dad-dicked the Yankees for 4 homers and 12 RBI. The numbers do the talking, the swagger handles the rest. Here's the subtraction test. Remove any one of these and the bracket collapses. The math breaks, and the flag likely doesn't fly. S-tier, the most valuable MVPs. 2 names that turn October into folklore, not highlight reels. We're talking about the performances that stop arguments before they start, the ones that live on without help from context or nostalgia. Immortality here means dominance that overrides time and debate. You say the year, people nod. You say the player, and the whole series loads in their head like a saved file. Madison Bumgarner in 2014 did something that feels museum level now. He worked 21 innings with a 0.43 ERA, threw a complete game shutout in Game 5, and then showed up 2 days later to end Game 7 on the road. Starters don't touch that workload anymore, and for good reason. This sits in that rare zone where usage, efficiency, and trust all peak together. To put this into perspective, his series sits alongside the best single-player runs of any era, and it needed almost no run support to hold. Game 7 on 2 days rest is the line that always lands. 5 shutout innings of relief, no room for error, and he treated every at-bat like a routine bullpen session. The thing is, he basically pitched more than some rotations do in a week. He took the ball, removed all randomness, and left almost no win probability scraps for anyone else. That's why the number next to his name is small, and the legend next to it is big. David Freese in 2011 took a different road to the same hilltop. One strike away twice in Game 6, he said no both times. First with the opposite field triple off the wall, then with the walk-off homer that kept the story going. Then he opened Game 7 with a dagger that set the tone again. It's safe to say those swings turned a coin flip into a script. The gap between loss and legend came down to a few pitches, and he owned them. Memory research backs why these two stick. National broadcasts replay the same seismic moments every October. Pair that with extreme leverage, and you get cultural memory anchors. Your brain stores the highlight because it saw it 100 times, and the body remembers the feeling of that 9th inning breath hold. That cycle makes a clip into folklore, and folklore needs no stat line to survive. Our running gag about voters picking the last big hit actually lands here, because the last big hits were colossal. Freese finished the series with the loudest moments, and voters went there. Bumgarner ended the series in a way only he could, and voters had nowhere else to go. In both cases, the biggest swings belong to the right stories. The immortality stamp sticks to these two. They are the standard everyone else chases, the checkpoint any future World Series MVP has to clear to enter the same room. Now that the tiers are set, let's talk about why last hit bias keeps showing up, why voters love the last big hit. If it happened last, it feels biggest. That's how a lot of MVP ballots get filled. The final swing sticks because the game ends on it, the cameras linger on it, and your brain tags it as the moment that mattered most. The thing is, awards are picked by people, and people lean on the freshest, loudest memory when the margins feel thin. Recency bias and salience drive that instinct. A steady 400 across 6 games builds real value, but one late moonshot that flips a score burns brighter in memory. Viewers see the celebration while the highlight runs, then see the trophy right after. The gap between event and vote shrinks, and the late blast claims the narrative before anyone digs into the full series line. This is why a 400 series with singles can lose to one swing. The late homer comes with noise, crowd reaction, and a visual finish. A single in the 3rd inning that set up a rally does not. The story writes itself. The last hit saved the day, so the last hitter saved the series. That's clean, even when it isn't complete. Look at Steve Pearce in 2018. He hit 2 huge homers late and froze the award in place before the plane left LA. David Freese in 2011 is the classic version. 1 strike away twice in Game 6. Then he lands the triple and the walk-off, and the series turns into his show. Jorge Soler in 2021 launched go-ahead shots that arrived at the exact point where voters stop debating and start deciding. Late blasts lock the narrative because they feel like the final proof. There are times when the whole series screams too loud to ignore. David Ortiz in 2013 reached base so often that no single swing could claim all the credit. Madison Bumgarner in 2014 ended the voting by taking the ball and choking out every inning, including the finale on 2 days rest. When a performance controls every night, the last hit shortcut loses power. The cognitive piece is simple. The availability heuristic says we recall vivid, high-leverage plays more than early game singles. Win probability added and leverage index back this up. The moments that swung the game hardest line up with what people remember strongest, and voters follow that pull. A quiet 4-hit game spreads value across 9 innings. A 9th inning bomb wraps it into one scene. If MLB wanted to save time, it could hand out the MVP right after the last swing and call it a day. That joke lands because the effect is real. Understanding this bias explains why some C and B tier winners leapfrog more complete lines. The framing isn't about total value, it's about the moment you can't forget. And then there are the one-week comets, who never come back. Some guys reach their baseball peak for 7 days and then vanish from headlines. One crazy week, a few loud swings, and the award follows them around forever while the rest of the career slides back to average. That's the one-week comet. It burns bright, gets stamped on merch, and then fades as the next season starts. October variants and small samples can do that. A role player can see 20 plate appearances in a week, square up a couple of hangers, and suddenly he's the storyline. The thing is, the postseason schedule compresses value. A single swing flips an entire series, so the person who owns that swing can leap ahead of a steady star who was good for 6 games but quiet in the 9th. Is that real value or lightning in a bottle? It's both. The win counts the same, and the trophy sits on the shelf. But it came from a tiny window where everything lined up. Pitcher mistakes, scouting reports, wind, and confidence stack up, and a player rides that wave across 5 nights. After that, the normal numbers return, and the comet disappears behind league-average split lines. Take Steve Pearce in 2018. He launched 2 late homers that froze the voting before the champagne popped. Jorge Soler in 2021 hammered 3 and turned go-ahead spots into personal brand moments. Jermaine Dye in 2005 hit .438 and drove in the clincher. Then, the series itself faded from rewatch history. Big in the week, quieter in the legacy, because the tape doesn't run every October. Postseason plate appearances are a fraction of a season. 1 week might equal 20 to 30 trips to the plate. A hot stretch that small is common in June and barely gets a mention, but in October, it can decide a banner. Hot streaks swing series because the calendar magnifies them and the audience multiplies them. That doesn't make them fake, it makes them swingy. Contrast that with David Ortiz or Corey Seager. When they went off, it felt like a chapter in a bigger book. They already had elite track records, so the week wasn't the headline of their careers. It was proof of concept. With a 1-week comet, the week is the headline, and the rest of the resume reads like a supporting paragraph. Small sample volatility is part feature, part bug. It's why October is addictive. Anyone can become the story if the right pitches show up at the right time. Call it the October Peak and Retreat Tour. Great merch, limited dates, no encore. The mini payoff is simple. A small sample doesn't mean fake. It means fragile. To live forever, the comet either adds repeat chapters or pulls a once-in-a-century act that never needs a sequel. Which brings us back to immortality versus obscurity. Can you pass the name test without context? That's the quick sort. Say a name and a year, and watch what happens. Do people nod right away or do they stall and reach for a search bar? That tells you if the moment lives in memory or needs a refresher course. The binary is simple. S-tier names need no setup. You only need the shorthand. D-tier names need a reminder and sometimes a screenshot. The trophy weighs the same, but the afterlife is different. One group gets replayed every October. The other gets a "who was that again?" before the clip even loads. Fair or not, the sport remembers narrative peaks, not spreadsheets. A tidy 400 doesn't stand a chance against a swing that detonated a 9th inning. The thing is, fans store stories with a final scene, not box scores. The name test rewards the play that carried a soundtrack and a broadcast call people still quote. Say Bumgarner 2014 and the room nods before you finish the sentence. Say Freese Game 6 and faces light up because the whole inning spools in their heads. Say Eckstein 2006 and a few people open their phones like they're checking the weather. The talent gap isn't the point. The memory gap is. Broadcast replays do half the work. Memes and bar debates do the rest. The same clips run in October montages every year, so they sink in like a chorus. The highlight becomes a shortcut for the whole series. Fans argue the call, repeat the joke, and the names stick because the evidence keeps cycling for free. There are speed bumps. Super Team MVPs fight dilution because the story spreads across 5 stars. Sweep MVPs fight apathy because tension never crests. Week-long comets fight time because the follow-up chapter never lands. Those forces push names down the memory stack, even when the trophy says winner. The asterisk that won't quit for 2017 shows how legacy gets edited by side notes. It can live right next to the name, louder than the stat line, and the last hit bias keeps voting easy. The final swing closes the tab in a voter's head, even when the quiet work stacked the lead in the 3rd. So the test is simple. Can your highlight play in every October montage without explanation? If the clip needs context, the name fades. If the clip explains itself, the name lives. That's how S-tier MVPs become immortal, while D-tier MVPs have to remind people they won. Only a few clear that bar. Most don't. And that's the deal. The award crowns the week, the montage crowns the legacy, and the final word on what the award really means sits at that intersection of memory and value, where one swing can outlive the season that created it. S-tier lives forever. D-tier brings receipts. The trophy is the same medal, but the afterlife is not. That's the whole point of this tier list. Some names echo every October, others need a reminder before the clip loads. Fans want fairness, but October rewards story more than balance and always will. S-tier lives in every montage. Bumgarner and Freese show up even when you don't ask. D-tier winners bring receipts. They say the year, the team, and the game just to be recognized. The award's value shows at the extremes, where performance bends time and memory. Drop your immortality picks and the most forgotten MVP you still ride for. If you like this video, like and subscribe for 1,000 years of luck.